Well, thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Not too long ago, I had the occasion to replace an iPhone 5, not this particular one. But they said it would be no problem. In fact, they said, we'll mail it to you, it'll have instructions, no big problem, you can get going in no time. So sure enough, soon a new iPhone 5 came in the mail, and I looked at it, it looked like this, with nothing on. So I plugged it in, got it charged up, nothing happened. Finally, an apple with a bite out of it showed up on the screen. And then some word, it meant nothing to me. Scratching my head, I might as well have used it for a doorstop at that point. So I did what any person my age, man my age, would have done. Go down to the AT&T store at Delmine Center and let them figure it out. So I did, and I handed it to a 20-something, and she went, and about 5 minutes later, here, we're all set. I said, you gotta be kidding me. How did you do that? Well, it was easy, no big problem. And I'm thinking to myself, I guess I'm just an old guy. You know, the young people today have a lexicon of words and abbreviations that we're just learning ourselves, some of us older folks. Things like iPhone and iPad and iPod and I won't and I will and I do and I don't. And then there's MP3. And I thought MP3 was a Colombian gang. Well, that was MS-13. Close. Close. But anyway, you see what the problem is here. And so I thought back, you know, there's got to be things in my lexicon, if you will, the language that I use, that some of us here would appreciate, that maybe the younger folks can't figure out or have no idea what I'm talking about. So I came up with some thoughts that I want to share with you today. And I find that even on television, I tend to use these, and I realize when I say them, maybe I shouldn't have said that. For example, when the weather is particularly the same day after day after day, and I'm going to say that tomorrow is going to be a carbon copy of today. And I'm thinking, you know, there's probably out there people watching me that are saying, what's a carbon copy? Raise your hand if you know what a carbon copy is. Now the hands went up. All right, well, I'm going to show you what a carbon copy is. This is a receipt book. Now, presently we have the programs today. We use a laser printer and everything's printed off real quick. But back in the 50s, if you wanted copies of something, you had to get a carbon copy. Now, this is a receipt book, and it has a white sheet and a yellow sheet, and in between there are these black coated pieces of paper. Trying to separate them out, and you don't want to get your hands all over them because you get them dirty. And this is called a sheet of carbon paper. And you put them between the two, and you write on the top one, and it comes through in the second one. Magically, you have a carbon copy. So pretty straightforward, I thought. But people today, well, I don't know, they're used to the laser printer. Not quite as well. So I'm thinking of something else. And I caught myself actually using this on the air about 2-3 weeks ago, and then I had to explain it to my co-anchor, who is going to be my granddaughter, actually. And I said something to the effect that the weather around here, it's like a broken record. What's a broken record? I want to rephrase that. How about, it's like a needle stuck in the groove. What's a groove? You're lucky I brought something to show you today. This is a 45 RPM record. Yay. It is At the Hop by Danny and the Juniors. Yeah. Let's go to the hop, oh baby. All right, so 45 RPM means that the record turns around on the turntable. I know, what's a turntable? 45 times in the course of 1 minute. Now, if you think that's fast, I have some 78 RPM records. They're big things. It has the same size song on it, but like that. It has a needle, and it gets in this groove, and it keeps getting closer and closer to the middle. And sometimes it gets stuck. And so you're going along at top, at top, at top. And they call that the needle stuck in the groove. You got that, 20-somethings? Those of you So, that is another explanation, another thing that we, it's certainly in my lexicon that may not be in everybody's. And then I'm thinking of something that we still use today and don't think much about it. And In fact, Arnie used it in a speech not too long ago. That's to dial the phone. Does anybody know how you dial the phone? I have a phone here today. It's not a dial phone. The reason it's not a dial phone is because in the days when there were dial phones, when you moved, you went to the telephone company, they gave you a phone, and when you moved, you turned it back in. They were loaners. You didn't get to keep the dial phones, and so you have to put up with this early princess phone that has push buttons. But dial phone had a dial on it, plastic dial, about 4 inches in diameter, with 10 equal diameter holes around it, representing numbers 0 through 9. And you dial the number, like as the song goes, Beechwood 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. That's when we didn't have all number dialing. And instead of pushing the buttons, you dial it. And you don't even see those anymore. My mother-in-law, until about 10 years ago, actually did have one of these phones. And I always like to tell the story because it's funny to this day. Because my daughter was at my mother-in-law's house, and we were as a family, and she brought a friend. And the friend said to my mother-in-law, do you mind if I use the phone? And she said, no, go ahead. And so she went over to the phone, looked at it, scratched her head, and said, how do you work this thing? So being the nice guy that I was, I went over and showed her because after all, I'm an old guy. So we do have in our own lexicon these phrases that people still use today without really understanding where they came from or what they mean. They sort of know that carbon copy means it's similar, but they don't know what a carbon copy is. They sort of know that broken record means we're doing it over and over, but they don't understand where it came from. And dial a phone, well, we had dial-up service on the internet. Did anybody dial a phone? Get that? So, but I know the background of all of those things, and the reason is because I'm an old guy.